Today I'm taking a look at the new game Flatiron from the designers of the Red Cathedral and the White Castle. This is their next game, and in this particular game, you are building this iconic Flatiron building. It is a game for 1 to 2 players, so of course it plays solo. I'm going to show you how it plays, and then I'll come back and share with you some of my thoughts on Flatiron. Okay, so here we have a game of Flatiron set up. It is not a very big game. It is an engine building and worker placement game at its core. However, you only have one worker. It is this little pawn or meeple right here, and there's one for each color. There's a green one and a purple one that come in this game. So in Flatiron, you're going to be placing your worker out each turn on one of the various streets, or by going to City Hall, and you'll have 2 choices on each turn. You can either buy a card that is on that particular street, or you can decide to run your engine or run your street for that particular street. And the game comes with a couple of these different player boards. They are all a little bit unique, but they all have sort of the same actions going on, just maybe in different places. Also, you can see over here for the solo player, which I'll explain in a second, theirs is a little bit different than the one I got out for me. So they just arrange those in a little bit different order. Also, they are double-sided as well. They suggest that you start with the purple side, so that's what we'll do here for this example. But there's also a green side that's a little bit more complex if you wanted to play with that. So if I say on my first turn, maybe I'm going to go to 22nd Street, and I could either run my 22nd Street engine over here, or I could buy the card that is on 22nd Street right now, which would actually go on 23rd Street. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I will spend 2 coins, and then I will get this card. There's a couple of different things that you can do with this card. You can see the top of it, you get 2 money or $2. The bottom of it lets me swap out a pillar for any other color pillar. And I have to decide where I'm going to put this on my street. Now, each street can have a max of 3 cards, and you can slot them either on the top or the bottom of the street, depending on what you want to do. But again, each street can only have a max of 3. I think for this one, I would keep it up here. So next time that I run my 23rd Street, I would get 2 money, and then I would be able to do all these actions down here. Now, the other thing in Flatiron is that you cannot go to the same street that the other character is at. It changes a little bit for the solo mode, but in the normal game, you're not allowed to do that. So if I wanted to go over here, that would be a no-no. So for my next turn, maybe I go to 5th Avenue, and maybe I say I'm going to go ahead and run my 5th Avenue engine, if you will. So I will spend $2, and that will allow me to get one of these brown pillars, and I will place it right here on my board. Now, you can also sell these for money as well. That's usually not very advantageous, though. You usually want to be able to place them if possible. So you would, spend the $2, and you get the brown pillar. And then for down here, I could pay $1 and place this, any pillar, doesn't have to be this one, but place a pillar out in this middle part of the board. So I will go ahead and do that and get $4 for my change. Then I can put this wherever I want to. I'm going to put it here because that's going to get me 2 extra victory points in addition to the victory points that I earned from placing it, which is 2. So then I would move my little marker 4, and that would be that turn. Now, also for this area, there can never be 2 of the same color out there at a time. So sometimes that is allowed. There is one of these boards over here that does have that as a option, basically. But usually you're not going to be allowed to have 2 of the same color out there. Also, these boards have kind of a special thing that happens every round. This is, in this particular round, you can share a space with the other player or with the solo mode. So that is a kind of a special rule that's in effect for this particular round. But what would happen throughout the next course of turns is you might get some more pillars on here, and then maybe somebody can finish this particular level of the Flatiron. When you would do that, you would go to this space on my particular board, and you would spend $5, and you would be able to put this top on this level right here. And it would get you 6 points, and then these are the new spots for the next round. In this particular round, if you were to place a green one here, or a bluish green one there, if you will, you get 3 extra points. An orange one there would get you 2 extra points, and a brown one there would get you 1 extra point. So that's how the course of the game goes. Whenever you get to this roof tile right here and you place it on the top after you've stacked up the multiple levels, the game is over, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. Now, there is one more spot that you can go to that I did not talk about yet, and that is City Hall over here. And so if you go to City Hall, you can decide that you're going to spend $3 and get one of these decree cards, if you would like. And these are all in-game scoring cards. So if I were to get this one, if I slotted it at the top of my board, I would get 3 points. If I slotted it at the bottom of my board, I would get 6 points. But it also affects my influence or reputation. You can see these are -1 or -2. At the end of the game, when you have all of your cards on a particular street, you want to look at them and you want them to either be even or positive. You can see this is a +1 up here. This would be a -1. So it would be at a net of 0 if we were to put it up here. And this is a -2, would be at a net of -1 if we were to put it down here. But you want to make sure that's a positive number at the end of the game, because that's going to really have an effect on how many points you can score. And you can also only slot 1 decree card per street on your board. So you can have a max of 4 of these that you would be able to buy. So you'd spend $3 to purchase that and then put it somewhere on your board over here. You can also take advantage of this newspaper token right here, and that is an action that anybody can take at any time they're at City Hall. So if you wanted to, you could get 3 coins, and the other default action at City Hall is that you can get 2 coins. That's usually not a very good action, but if you wanted to, you could take that action. But since there's a 3 right there, you would obviously want to take that one in this particular case. So that's how the multiplayer game works of Flatiron. Again, there's a few changes for the solo mode. I'll explain the Paperboy and also how the solo mode works now. Okay, I've swapped out my board for the solo mode board, and again, you can use any board that comes in the game, and you can be either character as well. You can be green or purple. I've made the solo mode purple for this particular example. So the solo mode uses just a deck of cards, and that is what it is going to use to dictate where it goes on its particular turn. So at the beginning of its turn, all you will do is flip a card over, and you can see right now the solo player would like to go to 22nd Street. So you would just put that marker at 22nd Street, and that would be what you would do for this particular turn. Now, this down here is telling you for however many of these types of cards are out here at this time, that's how many victory points the solo mode gets. So it'll get 1 victory point on this particular turn, but as you have more cards out there, it would get more points. Now, if 22nd Street is blocked, or not blocked, excuse me, but if it's already on 22nd Street, then it would go to Broadway. The thing with the solo mode is that it can share spaces with you as the other player. So if you were also at 22nd Street, the solo mode could come there, and it would actually score 2 points if it winds up on the same space as you. So then you would move its marker even more, and you just continue to do that. And so then, say 22nd Street comes up for the second time. Well, now the solo mode buys the card that is at 22nd Street in addition to doing the action. This action, it wants to place a blue pillar out. It would love to place it here as its first option, and then there is its second option, and there is its third option as it's demonstrating on the card. So you would place that pillar out right here. It scores for however many points that pillar is worth on its player board, which for blue, that's 4 points for the solo mode. And then it also gets an extra point as well. So then it would go over here. And like I said, once it has 2 of the same street card out there, you would buy a card from that particular street. So it would just get the top card, keep it for the end of the game, and then however much money the card costs, that's how many extra points the solo mode gets at the end of the game for all of its card. If you ever have 3 of the same street out here, which there's only 2 of each street, but say this pops up now, and now we've got 22nd Street showing up 3 times here. Well, now you would take all of these cards and you would shuffle them and then start dealing the cards out again. So again, there's 2 cards for each street. The solo mode also has a City Hall card, which is going to allow it to put that topper on, like I showed you a minute ago, and build the next level of the Flatiron. If it can't do that, it will just take a decree card. There's also these, duplicate actions over here. If it can't place out this orange pillar, then it's going to just basically score points based on however many cards are out there at that particular point. So very easy to run the solo mode. Does not take much extra work at all. And then I'll explain the Paperboy as well. So the Paperboy give you some tokens that you can use as kind of one-time bonuses throughout the course of the game. If the solo mode gets there first, then you move the Paperboy to the next spot, which would be 20 in this case. The solo mode would remove this from the City Hall board and just flip another one up randomly, and then you would also just get one randomly as well. If you get to the Paperboy first, you are able to take 2 tokens and then decide which one you want. So it's a little bit more of an advantage if you're able to get there first, but if you can't, you'll still get a token even if the solo mode gets there first. So that's how the solo mode works. Again, whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. Now that I've showed you an overview, I'll give you some of my thoughts on Flatiron. Okay, you've seen an overview of Flatiron. Now I'll share with you some of my thoughts about this game. My first like for this game is that it is very small table presence, and also the components are really nice as well. I mean, these pillars are really fun. Building that that building up in the middle of the board there is really fun to see, and the cards are really nice quality. The boards, the little player pawns or meeples, if you will, are really well done also. So no complaints there with the components for Flatiron, and also no complaints with the setup either. You know, that's one thing that I keep in mind when you're playing solo, especially, is that you've got nobody there to help you set it up or tear it down. So you want something that for the playtime feels like it's relative in terms of setup and tear down. And this, you can, set this up in just a couple of minutes and you're good to go. And the playtime is right around 45 minutes. So that feels good for the experience that you get with the game. Another like that I have with this game is that I really like the decisions that you have to make throughout the course of the game. And even though you've only got really 2 or 3 options of where to go on your particular turn, because you're at one street and the solo mode is blocking another street, you still want to try to figure out where the best place is to go to maximize that particular turn. Because if you don't end up maximizing your turns, you will get behind very quickly. And I'll talk about that more in my dislikes coming up in just a few minutes. But you really have to think, okay, if I go here, I could run this street's engine and I could maybe get some money, which will let me do this the next turn. So you're always thinking like 2 or 3 turns ahead in this particular game. And again, you're trying to figure out what the best option is. You say, okay, maybe I'll go here and get a card. Then next time I come here, this street will be even more powerful. Or maybe you really decide you're going to set up on one particular street. You're going to get a lot of cards for Broadway, maybe, or 22nd Street or something like that. So when you go to that particular street, you always have really great options in terms of running that street's engine. So I really like that aspect of the game as well. That is a lot of fun. The Paperboy aspect is also kind of interesting. Those one-time bonuses with the newspaper tokens are nice. They do give you something good that you can cash in at any point throughout the course of the game. So I like that as well, that you are getting a little bit of a one-time benefit, but you can take advantage of that benefit whenever you would like. Unfortunately, that's where my likes kind of end for this particular game for Flatiron. I didn't have a lot of them for this particular game, and I want to preface this before I get into my dislikes by saying, if you were playing this with another real person, I think this would probably be a much different game. But a lot of my dislikes in Flatiron lie with the solo mode and also how it operates. So it is very easy to operate, which is not bad at all, but I feel like it is very powerful in terms of the fact that you're never really able to catch up to it. I played a couple of games of this and the solo mode beat me every time by like 20 to 30 points. And the first game, between the first, the second, and the third game, I got a better score every game, obviously, as I was getting better at the game. But the solo mode was still beating me by that margin. So I don't know if I'm just playing really poorly or if the solo mode is just kind of poorly designed and is difficult to get the same score as it. But there's a few things that irritate me with the solo mode. One is the fact that it can go to the same spot you're at, and not only when it does that, it also gets 2 points in doing that as well. So you're saying to yourself, well, I have to kind of strategize and figure out with those cards in its deck. It's got 2 for each street. I know that maybe it's going to have, one more Broadway card that's coming up or whatever. But without a doubt, even if you try to strategize, you will still have that happen at least 2 to 3 times around, where the solo mode will wind up on the same spot as you and will get a free 2 points. Just don't really like that. I can't do that. I can't go to the same spot that the solo mode is at. And also, if it wants to go to the same spot, that's fine. But why is it also getting rewarded for going there as well? Just seems like kind of not super fair in terms of the solo mode versus you as the regular player. Another thing that's kind of frustrating about the solo mode as well is the amount of cards it collects as well. You don't score any points for cards at the end of the game. You do if your your pluses and your minuses are positive at the end of the game. The solo mode is just getting the points for the cost of the card. So that adds up to, an extra 16 to 20 points usually that it's going to get at the end of the game just for getting those cards. And the other thing with the solo mode as well is that it constantly is obviously kind of doing the same action that you want to do, but it seems like it's just able to do stuff way faster and way more powerful than you can do. It might flip a card over and it might build a pillar on its turn and take up a spot. Well, for you, that's probably going to take maybe a couple turns to be able to do that. For that white color, an example on my board that I was showing you, on the Broadway spot, I would have to obviously pay for that white pillar, and then I would also have to pay to place it out on the Flatiron Building. So that's going to require a lot of coins, and also I have to get that pillar before I'm able to do that. So the fact that the solo mode can just instantly place it out there very quickly, score the points. Next turn, maybe you flip another card over that has it place another pillar, more points. And so it's very hard for you to be able to ever maybe get a pillar out there, or maybe you've gotten one of a particular color, you've worked for a couple of turns to do that, and then it places one of those out there on the board, and then you kind of have to figure out how to switch that, or move to a different strategy. But you're constantly trying to figure out a different strategy against the solo mode, just because it feels like, again, it is a little bit overpowered. Another thing that it does that a real player would not do is, because it only has that one City Hall card in its deck right here, where it actually completes the next level of the Flatiron, there will be times when it will be on the spot where you could go to complete that next level, and it'll just, stay there, or maybe you draw a couple of cards in a row where it's, keeps going back to that street or whatever, and you're not able to go there to complete it, but it's also not completing it as well. So you get to this point where there's kind of a standstill, where you've got 3 pillars on there, you're ready to get the next level on, and nobody can go and complete the level or build up to the next level of the Flatiron, because you may not have enough coins, or the space may not be open for you to do that. And the solo mode isn't going to do that, because again, it only has one card that does that, and so it's hard for that particular card to come up throughout the course of the game. So those are just kind of some of my dislikes with the solo mode in general. I do like, again, how it operates. It is very easy to operate the solo mode, and that's one thing that I always appreciate, but I just feel like it's not balanced very well, especially for when you are playing as, a one-person game. It just feels like you're going to lose very handedly to the solo mode every single time. I have not figured out a way to beat it yet. I also haven't figured out a way to get close to its score that it gets, just because it has so many opportunities where it is constantly scoring points, and you're not really able to do that. So I just feel like you're at a disadvantage. So for Flatiron, overall, I don't think I can really recommend this as a solo game. I think it would be fun as a 2-player game. If you're really interested in this, you could try and pick it up and give it a try and see what you think. But overall, as a solo experience, I'm going to rate this a 6 out of 10. I just didn't really enjoy it. I felt that the solo mode was really overpowered, like I said, very hard to catch up or get ahead of it. And I don't feel like I need to, I've said this before on this channel, I don't have the need to win every game that I play, especially against the solo mode, but I want to feel like I was able to compete the best that I could. And I know in a lot of games, the solo mode usually gets a bonus of some sort for not being a real player, either extra points, extra resources, extra things, whatever. But again, I think the thing that really kills it for this particular game is that not only can it go to the same spot as you, which you cannot do, but it also gets 2 points for going there, and it doesn't have to collect pillars at all. It just automatically places them out on the board. Those 2 things score it points in bunches, and then it just feels like you can never catch up to it, and you're behind very early in the game. Again, I had times in this game when the solo mode basically almost lapped me on the scoring track because it was so far ahead of me in the game. So again, 6 out of 10 for Flatiron. Unfortunately, this one was not really a hit with me. I don't know if this will be hitting my table that much often, but again, seek it out if you're interested in it. It is a pretty inexpensive game, comes in a pretty small box, small setup. It is an interesting concept, and again, I think it would work really well if you were playing against another human. As a 2-player game, I think my score for this would be much higher than it is for just a solo 1-player game. So thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I've got more solo videos on my channel as well. Check those out too. Until next time, I'm Jared. You've been checking out Specifically Solo.